Welcome to your Saints, everybody. How are we doing? Time to talk about air masses. Here's the simple part of this. If you've ever noticed, as probably you have in the last week, even if you're not watching it this week while we're all doing it, that some days suddenly it feels like colder than it did the other day, or warmer than it did the other day. Suddenly you go outside and the air just feels different, both in terms of temperature and humidity. Well, here's the secret, and it's not a big secret. If you feel like the air is colder than it was the other day, where do you think that cold air came from here on this planet that we're learning more and more about? You're supposed to guess right here. Pretty easy guess. It comes from the north. It's cold up there. And then some days, suddenly it feels a little bit warmer than normal. Guess where that air comes from? That air that you're breathing in and out on that day. The south. That's it. So if you're doing this live here as we get back from Christmas break 2022, it was warm through Christmas. We were breathing warm, humid air, kind of wet, sloppy, gray. That was warm, humid air that had come up from the south. You were breathing in and out air that was in the south not too long before that. Then, what? Yesterday, really, I suppose, sweeping out of the northwest, came through, gave us some snow, and now we have this much colder, much drier air here in town. So if you can relate to that, and it's not like that's not advanced meteorology. That's just, hey, it's cold outside all of a sudden. Where did this cold air come from? Then you got it. You've really got the basis of air masses. I should change to a color. Figured out. You've got the basics of it. Some days are colder, some days are warmer. Where'd that air come from? So, the definition of an air mass, what this thing is that we got to figure out, is a body of warm air with relatively uniform temperature and pressure. So, all we've really got to figure out as we're naming these things is, are they warm or cold? Or we've got some that are like very cold, like frigid. I'll say very cold, parentheses, frigid. Lots of parentheses there. So that's it. Are they warm or cold? And then next, are they humid or dry? Now, this sounds like a lot. If you're starting to panic saying this looks like a lot that I've got to memorize, here's the good news. The names of them are all right there in the reference tables. So all you got to do is open it up and look at those things, right? We just got to get down, though, maybe a tiny bit in terms of like, what does that mean? Do you say continental polar, continental tropical, maritime polar, maritime tropical? What do those things mean? And it's really pretty intuitive. And if you can just get down the like tiny bit of vocab and then look at the reference tables, stuff's pretty easy, to be honest with you. So it's a tool. There it is. There's the reference table right there. So this is exactly what it looks like. CA, CP, CT, MT, MP. Now, again, it's not a terrible thing. Today, all we really got to do is get down these properties and what they mean. I'm going to look for you guys to have this chart done before you do the classwork. And then, like, as we get into the labs for meteorology, we'll have to use this terminology. The air that is outside Pulaski right now, today, that on again on January 3rd, as we come back to school, is continental polar air. What's it like? Where did it come from? All right, so let's try to get this system down. The first letter, which if you notice, these look a little bit funny, right? The first letter is always lowercase. That's just how they do this. Either C for continental or M. This is maybe the one word that people haven't heard before, maritime. And what those will describe is the humidity. If the air came from a continent, it's a continental air mass, it tends to be dry. If it came from a maritime, so again, what's this maritime thing? If you know what a marine biologist is, or a marina where you keep boats, or the Marines, all of those things have to do with water, one way or another. Maritime like refers to the ocean. The Seattle Mariners, the Mariner, he's like that fisherman dude. Okay, marine, that's the prefix, always deals with water. So if the ones that come from continents are dry, guess what? The ones that come from marine environments are going to be humid or wet. That's it. That'll tell you your humidity. So C's for continental dry, M for maritime's wet. Boom, 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 boom. You could do that. Second letter, always uppercase. will either be P for polar, T for tropical. And A's are pretty rare. I don't know why I didn't put a blank there, but it's for Arctic. That's going to be, and we only have them some years. We get every once in a while you get those years where you get like a week where it's just outrageously cold all week. That's when you get. And they, if you ever heard that polar vortex term they used back then, that's what they're talking about. These will all refer to the temperature. So P polar is for cold, T tropical is for warm, and A Arctic is for frigid. And then it's really just combine them all. So a continental Arctic, what's that like? Well, it's going to be dry and frigid. That's going to be your job right there. And again, I would like this done before you do your classwork, and I will be checking those. And it's not too bad. Again, that's the job. Continental Arctic is dry and frigid. Continental polar is figure it out, right? So again, what air mass we're in right now is a CP, continental polar. It's drier and colder. Now, of course, depending on the seasons, you can have a CP in the summertime that's not like what it is right now, where the temperatures is like in the maybe low teens. That's not going to happen in August, where suddenly it goes down to low teens. But can you still have continental polar air come in? Yeah, it's going to be colder and drier than whatever is going on seasonally, whatever seasonally appropriate. Um, But again, that's it. Just naming them isn't too bad. We'll like practice with these, and then when we start doing maps and like looking at them, that's where maybe it'll be a little harder. But my goal today is really let's just get down the names of these things and say what they mean, and we'll be happy. Okay. Source regions. First, we have to make sure we understand what an air mass is. Let's just redefine it again. It is a large body of air with similar properties. I'm talking large, like the size of multiple states put together, like regional. This CP air mass isn't in Pulaski, it's in like the whole Northeast. Second, air masses have the properties of the regions they come from. If that sounds like a confusing sentence, here it is stated simply. Cold, dry air comes from cold, dry places. Warm, humid air comes from warm, humid places. And that's it. So if we look at this map right here, what I'd like to do is draw in the source regions. And we'll do it for the ones that really affect us. We live eastern Great Lakes. We live right about there. Let me make the dot a little bigger. We live right about there, right? Plenty big. Um, so where might these air masses come from? Hey, let's do the cold ones in blue. We got that option. So up here in Canada, now yes, I know there's some water here, but generally there's a lot of land. This and since the weather's going to come like down to us in this direction, that's where we're going to get our CP, continental polar air masses. Cold, dry air comes from cold, dry places. Off of Canada would be right there. If you've ever heard of the term a nor'easter, these are when storms come out of the northeast. Remember, we named winds for where they come from. So when we get a nor'easter bringing winds down from the northeast into upstate New York, that would be off the ocean and colds. That's a maritime polar. And again, and yes, I know there's a lot of water up here, but CAs can occasionally come. It's a little bit more rare. And yeah, there's a lot of water, but it's frozen. And then we'll learn more about how cold air and humidity aren't quite as happy together as warm air is. I'm less panicked about those, but these two we're going to want to be pretty comfortable with. The other one that we'll really want to be comfortable with is air that comes up out of the Gulf of Mexico right here. So if we're coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, it's water, it's marine, it's maritime. This is going to be your maritime tropical coming up out of there. And again, not really affecting us because it's got to come off of mainland Mexico. And by the time it reaches all the way up to us, especially with the Appalachian Mountains in the way, they really don't retain their properties. We do not see a ton of these guys, continental, tropical, affecting upstate New York. Affecting this region, absolutely. But for us, not as much. Those are the big ones. And that drawing kind of does the same thing, but I'm glad we did it right there. Give yourself two questions, and then we'll try them. And again, big goal. What are we trying to do here? just be able to check out this reference table right there, which is right with the station models and everything else on page 13, right there in the station models, and get continental, maritime, polar, tropical, and then Arctic. Okay? You can do it. It's not too bad. And then we'll do a quick classwork with some questions on this. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you again. Take care.